My name is Marcus Holloway, and I'm not sure where to begin with all this chaos, but I think it starts with what I thought was a solid life. For 15 years, I've been married to Clarissa, a woman I once believed understood me down to my bones. We lived in a great suburban house, clean lines, huge windows. Nothing fancy, but it felt like ours. No kids, just the two of us. And I was fine with that. I'd spent years throwing myself into my career. Started with a little company that barely paid the bills. Over time, I turned it into something real, a multi-million-dollar business that let us breathe easily. Investments, wise movements, long evenings. It all added up. Then, there came the family estate. This old mansion my parents handed down to me when they retired. 7 acres of rolling green grass. The kind of place that smells like history when you walk through it. I fixed it up, not because it was worth a fortune, though it was close to $7 million, but because it meant something. It was where I grew up, where my dad taught me to fish in the creek out back, where my mom used to hum while she made Sunday dinners. Restoring it felt like honoring them, keeping a piece of us alive. Clarissa knew it. At least I believed she did. But then one evening, everything shifted. We were sitting in the living room, the TV humming quietly in the background, when she placed her glass of wine down, hard enough to make me look up. She crossed her arms, her lips tight, and stared at me like I'd done something wrong. "Hand over the inheritance, Marcus," she said. Her voice was sharp, like a knife cutting through the quiet. I blinked at her, waiting for the punchline. But there wasn't one. She wasn't asking. She was telling me. My chest tightened. I set my own drink down, slow, trying to figure out what she meant by ours. The estate wasn't some pile of cash I'd been hiding. It was a home, a promise, a tie to my parents, who were still alive, and, well, living there. I had never seen her look at me like that before, like I was a lock she needed to break open. "What are you talking about?" I asked, keeping my tone even. Hoping she'd back off. She didn't. "You've been sitting on that property long enough," she said, leaning forward. "It's time to cash it in. We could do so much with that money." Her eyes were bright, but not with love, with something else, something hungry. I told her no. Flat out. It wasn't about the money for me, it was about family, about roots. She didn't get it. Or maybe she didn't want to. That night she went to bed without another word. But I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how long she'd been thinking this way. The next day, she acted like nothing had happened, smiling over coffee, but I could sense it. The first fissure in something I'd thought was unshakable. I kept running over her words in my head, hand it over, like it was hers to claim. I built everything we had, and yeah, she'd been there. But this wasn't her legacy. It was mine. My parents, Nolan and Marjorie, weren't just names on a deed. They were the heartbeat of that house. I couldn't imagine telling them we were selling it out from under them because Clarissa wanted a bigger bank account. I tried talking to her again a few days later, thinking maybe she'd calm down. "It's not just a house," I said, sitting across from her at the kitchen table. "It's where I come from." She shrugged, her eyes flat. "Marcus, it's real estate. Don't make it more than it is." That stung, but I didn't push back. Not yet. I figured she'd let it go soon. She usually did, but this time was different. She started dropping hints, tiny digs about how realistic people didn't cling to outdated things, how we could travel, buy a second home. If I'd just see reason, I'd nod, say something ambiguous, move the subject. But inside I was starting to see her in a new light, not the woman I married, but someone who'd been waiting for an opportunity to cash in on my life. And then, one night, I caught her on the phone, mumbling about assessments, time frames. She hung up hastily when she noticed me, smiled like it was nothing. "Just a friend," she said. I didn't believe her. That was the moment I realized loyalty wasn't what I thought it was. Not with her. The crack was real, and it was only going to get bigger. No reply. I stood there, sitting on the side of some posh Tokyo office building, my tattoo strung around my neck, feeling like I couldn't breathe. My parents, Nolan and Marjorie, where were they? Were they okay? I dialed my dad next, my fingers, fumbling over the digits. It rang 4 times before he picked up, his voice calm but fatigued. "Marcus, you all right, son?" he asked. "Dad, what's happening?" I said, trying not to sound as scared as I felt. "Clarissa just sent me something about the house." He exhaled, long and deep. "She did it, Marcus. Sent in some guys with machines yesterday. It's gone. We're at Peter's place now. Your cousin's been good to us." I couldn't talk for a second, just listened to the hum of the line between us. "Are you okay?" I finally managed. "We're all right," he responded, surprised. "But fine. Your mom's holding up. We didn't see it coming." I promised him I'd call back soon and hung up, my brain spinning. Clarissa had actually done it. She'd torn down the house. The one she'd been after. The one I told her wasn't ours to touch. I went back into the meeting, sat down, nodded through the rest of it. But I wasn't there. My head was back home, imagining the devastation where my childhood used to be. I kept seeing my mom's rose plants, crushed, my dad's shed, destroyed. All because Clarissa thought she could take what she wanted. That night, alone in my hotel room, I glanced out at the city lights and tried to make sense of it. I'd left her a note about my folks stopping by. Had she waited until I was gone on purpose? The timing was too perfect. I picked up her message again, read it over, and then, out of nowhere, I laughed. Not a pleasant laugh. A piercing, bitter one that rang off the walls. She thought she'd won. She thought she'd obtained her $7 million award. "Oh, Clarissa," I thought, shaking my head, "you have no clue what you've done. I didn't know everything yet, how she'd pulled it off, what she'd planned next. But I knew one thing. She'd misjudged. That house wasn't just a salary, waiting to come, and I wasn't the pushover she thought I was. I couldn't fly back yet. The deals here were too big, and I had to see them through. But I spent every free minute on the phone with my parents piecing it together. They'd woken up to noise, bulldozers, men shouting, and Clarissa standing there, arms crossed, telling them it was for the best. My mom had cried, my dad had stayed silent, but they took what they could and left before it got worse. I asked if they'd called the police. "Didn't think to," Dad admitted. "It happened so fast. I told them to sit tight, that I'd handle it when I got back." Inside, I was boiling, mad at her, mad at myself for not seeing this coming, but that chuckle kept bubbling up too, because Clarissa didn't know the half of it. She'd swung hard, thinking she'd hit a home run, but she'd missed the ball completely. I finished the trip, signed the documents, booked the earliest flight home. Whatever she thought she'd gained, I was going to make sure she lost more. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. I'm Marcus Holloway, and I've always been a man who wants to know the ground I'm standing on, solid, reliable, something I can trust. But when I read Clarissa's message about wrecking my parents' house, I felt that ground quake, and not just because she'd done something insane. See, here's the thing. She didn't. No. The twist that made her whole strategy a house of cards. The estate she thought she'd turned into wealth? It wasn't mine to begin with. I was still in Tokyo when I started researching what she'd done, stitching it together between meetings and sleepless nights. My parents, Nolan and Marjorie, had explained the essentials, bulldozers, Clarissa yelling commands, them scurrying to get their luggage. But as I sat in that hotel room, staring at the neon glow outside, I knew she'd stepped into a problem she couldn't even see. That house? That large old place on 7 acres? Wasn't some fortune I stashed away. It officially belonged to my parents, locked in a family trust they'd established years ago, before I even married Clarissa. My name wasn't on the deed. Not yet, anyway. I'd restored it, sure. Put my own. Money into mending the roof, painting the walls, but that didn't make it mine. It was theirs. Locked. Tied in a trust she couldn't touch. And the property? That was the real kicker. It was zoned historical. Tied up in county preservation standards so strict. You couldn't take down a tree without a stack of licenses, let alone demolish a house that had been there since my great-grandparents' time. Told her it was unique, but she must have thought I meant nostalgic, not untouchable. I leaned back in the hotel chair, running my hands through my hair, nearly grinning at how wrong she'd gotten it. Clarissa didn't just underestimate me, she miscalculated everything. I called my cousin Peter the next day. He's the one my parents were staying with, and I asked him to fill me in. She showed up with 2 guys and a couple of machines, he said.